You're listening to In Network, Nordic's podcast series where we explore healthcare and technology with experts from around the globe.
Hello, and welcome to the In Network podcast feature, Designing for Health. I'm Nordic's Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Craig Joseph. I recently sat down with Doug Turner, Vice President of Enterprise Applications at UC Irvine Health. We discussed Doug's career path, managing growth and system standardization, and utilizing basic system design to improve efficiency and future development. We also talked about the importance of adaptability in healthcare IT, while balancing the demands of technology and operations. Let's plug in. Doug Turner, welcome to the pod. How are you this fine day?
Doing well. Better now being here with you.
That is sweet of you and worth the $5 that we've paid or that we will pay. So where do we find you today?
Yeah, today I'm in my office at UCI Health here in Irvine, technically Orange, California, in Southern California.
And is it raining and snowing or any of those things? Tell me what's going on.
Yeah, it's so bad outside. It's probably 70 degrees and sunny. And I know elsewhere in the country, it is not. We have it rough down here.
I'm shocked. You actually looked at maybe to figure out what the temperature was. Don't you just say it's 70 and sunny?
70 and sunny.
That's just the default answer.
Yeah, it's chilling off a little bit.
All right. Well, so you're at UC Irvine Health, and what do you do there?
Yeah, I serve as the Vice President of Enterprise Applications in the ITS division. That basically means that I have responsibility for our EHR and all of our integrated and associated third-party products, anything that's on the software side. And my peers on the technical side, our CTO has all the infrastructure, and our CMIO has our informatics and training, and I've got all the software analysts.
So how does one get that job? Tell us a little bit about where you started from. Start at nursery school and then just move on from there.
Well, in the beginning, there was my mom and my dad. No, but from I will go back actually some semi far in my life. I was grew up, had a very rebellious teenage career. I'll call it. And something in me just wanted to fight against the man, and so that was my teenage career. I grew up in a very faithful home, and it was interesting later after towards the end of my teenage career that I found my own way back on my own terms into faith and that sort of stuff. But the reason I even share that is because it led to me doing some missionary service when I was a young man, and that was a very, very transformative time period in my life. I met my wife while we were doing missionary service. I also met an individual who has become a lifelong mentor of mine, who was part of the missionary efforts, but was in his day job and his in normal life, he was a COO for a healthcare company. And so that started opening my mind up a little bit of, okay, I am not a healthcare provider for a reason. I have
that's fair.
Needle and blood phobia, and have numerous stories of passing out at inopportune times with that content. So, however, that still kind of opened up the door after doing some of that missionary service. My wife and I met and got married, and we both started school and started family. And I just did a general, business degree in school. And as I went through that, healthcare started to fall on the list down towards the bottom. You realize that, there seems to be a lot more efficiency and even money in other industries. And this sounds particularly inefficient and bureaucratic and political. I had my
That's all the time we have for today. Thank you for giving us your assessment of healthcare. No, I'm sorry. I couldn't help but interrupt. Yes. So everything was negative. And then what happened?
Well, so I had my resume out on monster.com to take us back to those years, and it got picked up by an Epic recruiter. And so I started doing my research on this Epic software, and thought, well, healthcare may not be my jam, but software, that sounds okay. I'm not a super techie person, as evidenced by you had to even help me figure out how to get this mic working. But that turned into a job at Epic, and so we moved the family out to Wisconsin, and that's really where I got started. And for yourself and for those listeners that know that process of starting a new job at Epic, day one is when you find out kind of where you have been assigned. I knew I was coming into the project management division, but I had no idea what application, what kind of area of healthcare. And you open up that onboarding folder, and it said, "Welcome to the professional billing team." And I thought, oh, thank goodness, because I could not do ORs and really anything clinical at that time. So that's where I got started. I got started doing Epic implementations more on the business side of applications. And one of my very first clients was an organization that was doing a lot of affiliate extensions with Epic that Epic calls Community Connect. And that, as I'm a big family guy, that has a very all in the family concept to it of being all on one EHR and sharing a single patient record at the heart. And I really fell in love with that concept, and became one of the managers for that program at Epic for a couple of years. And then that later led to, when I left Epic, to the next jobs that moved me into. I worked at Loma Linda University here in Southern California, and led some really large projects extending their software platforms out to some of their affiliate partners. Worked under their CIO for a number of years. Got to do some really cool things there. Got to really see the inside of a healthcare IT operation and stand up some new and innovative ways of trying to become more agile with with the software and with our projects. Ways to get to some of that low hanging fruit and quick wins and ROI, or return on value projects. That then led later to a move. We moved up to Washington State, and I took a job with Providence Health, and helped run their large extension program for a couple of years. And then I spent a couple of years in consulting, doing merger and acquisition consulting. That led me to UC Irvine, and doing some work with preparing for a large acquisition that they had. And then that ended up in a full-time job.
So that's amazing. I think you're the first person to say you were excited to open up that folder and see professional billing.
First ever. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So congratulations on that. I would ask you to explain the billing process to us, but we don't have time. So I'm going to fast forward through that.
I'll simply say that what I learned getting into healthcare is that it's incredibly inefficient, bureaucratic, and political. And yet somehow, now, even knowing that with eyes wide open, my heart is in it, and it's hard to beat. It's hard to find a better mission than healthcare, and so that just endears you to the industry. And now my aim is to try to fix what I can of the inefficiencies and help it progress.
Yeah. Well, that is a good goal. So, fix what you can and try to deal with what you can't fix. You all at UC Irvine are moving not to Epic from a different electronic health record, but you're moving from one Epic instance to another Epic instance. Which is a little unusual. It's actually pretty unusual. Tell us about that. How did that come about?
Yeah, we've got some exciting stuff happening here. For several years, UC Irvine has been on Epic at our academic medical center here in Orange, and all of our clinics, our 80 plus clinics. That instance of Epic, however, we are hosted by University of California, San Diego. So UCSD is the owner of this platform. And we, for those that know this model, we are essentially a large community connect partner of UCSD. And so we share the instance of Epic with them. And what's happened since that time, when they first went live with that in 2017, is a major growth phase for UC Irvine. So a few years ago, UC Irvine broke ground on a new hospital, a new construction project in Irvine. So that's going to add the second hospital into the UCI portfolio, and that's expected to open late next year. And then earlier this year, in 2024, UCI and Tenet announced that they had reached a deal to acquire 4 of Tenet's community hospitals here in Orange County and one in South LA County. So now we wake up and we are a functioning 5 hospital system all of a sudden, and with a 6 under construction. And just for good measure, we also have another joint venture rehab hospital under construction. So there's hospital number 7. So we're going from 1 to 7 kind of overnight. And that really made the decision, kind of dictated the decision for us of should we stay on the shared Epic instance or should we move to our own Epic instance? And the question had been floating out there for some time. And now with this much growth, it became very apparent that we are going to need our own. UCSD has been a great partner with us and is one of the really unique and cool parts of my job is that across the UC Health institutions, we all have peer groups, and we get to collaborate and share things and what each other is doing. And one group might pilot a certain new module or a new third party, and then the rest of us get to kind of piggyback off of that. It's a really unique and fun thing that really only comes here at the University of California. And with that, of course, with UCSD, we're even closer than just peers. We are partners on the current platform. And so yeah, that's what we're doing. We're separating from our shared UCSD instance of Epic onto our own, a new instance of Epic foundation system right out of the gate. And we're implementing that across our legacy academic medical center and 80 plus clinics, as well as our newly acquired 4 hospitals that are coming from Cerner and Athena Health, and our new construction hospitals from the ground up.
So I would imagine that all of your clinicians and billing folks and other folks that have worked in the Epic system for many, many years are going to see absolutely no changes once you flip the switch and they move into the new environment. Is that correct?
That would be incorrect.
That is incorrect. So for the record, I was wrong.
I'll use the cliche, but if you've seen one Epic system, you've seen one Epic system, right? We had actually a choice of whether we wanted to take a copy of our existing shared Epic instance or start with a fresh, the latest and greatest kind of Epic foundation system. And strategically made the decision to start with a fresh foundation system instance. And part of the reason, it's a really unique opportunity. I've asked several of my peers at other organizations who have been live on Epic for years, if you had a chance to re-implement Epic, what would you do differently? And while I don't get a ton of, I would do it different this way or that way, the number one response I get is, oh, I would love to re-implement Epic. And usually that's followed with, and we would stay as close to Epic foundation system as humanly possible. It would solve so many of our problems. And that's because, over time, after you get live on Epic or any EHR, big platform system, the vendor development and your adoption of that, they don't keep pace together. And then customizations come in where you need to deviate from their development. And so you end up needing to take on big upgrades. In the Epic land, it's called an Epic Refuel project, which often is set aside millions of dollars just to try to catch up to their development roadmaps and make it so that the next smaller upgrade you take, you can actually take more of that foundation system content. I think every Epic organization has heard the phrase "get back to foundation," or they've heard the negative side of we can't do that because we're not foundation. But we've customized something that now we can't adopt the new thing. So we strategically made a decision to stick with that. I'm happy to report, at least so far into our project, we're still early, but so far we have not documented any major deviations from the Epic Foundation system. And that will undoubtedly change over time, even over the course of the project. We'll undoubtedly run into some. And it's also been said, and I think from a little bit of a prideful stance as an academic medical center, that there are times when you absolutely must deviate and customize. And it's been said that our deviations, our customizations of today become Epic's foundation system tomorrow. And so we'll just be really intentional about those decisions that we make. The other really cool thing about this project and the timing of it, not everybody has the opportunity to implement a brand new EHR at the same time that they're going through a big growth phase and acquisitions and mergers and things. Some organizations, when they merge or acquire, will, they'll time it out where they will combine on HR and payroll, and then they'll work on procedures and policies and ERP and supply chain and this and that, and they'll maybe try by committee to standardize their workflows. And then maybe a few years later, they will go through a bigger EHR implementation and finally actually codify their standardization decisions. And we get to do that right at the beginning. And so we think with bringing our community hospitals into our network and into our project right from the very beginning, our governance is designed to have everybody at the table making one decision for the whole system, and not just one side dictating to the other, here's how we do it, here's how you must do it tomorrow. We're making those decisions together to bring ourselves together, both strategically, culturally, from a workflows and content standardization perspective. I think it's a really cool aspect and a really opportunistic moment for us to have this project at this time.
So you mentioned culture. Have you noticed a difference? I mean, there must be a significantly different culture between all of the hospitals, because you've got, kind of a mothership hospital, and then you've got a bunch of acquisitions. Are those which come from a completely different healthcare system? Are there different expectations about, how the system's going to work? And if so, how do you deal with those?
Yeah, there's certainly different expectations. I think that's probably the number one thing on my radar every day is expectation setting. And it changes depending on the audience. I'll go into maybe a specific area of like data conversion. When you are converting over data from legacy platforms, you go through a process of deciding what data for how long and what converts actually into active EHR data into your new EHR, and what you might archive or not bring over fully. And we are coming from 3 different EHRs, including the same EHR of our legacy Epic platform. And expectation setting wise that's really difficult to handle those messages. I would say for our legacy Epic users, the expectation isn't this just Epic to Epic? Like, just push the copy Epic button and everything will be there. And if it were that simple and that easy, but it is still, you have to treat what we're doing, you have to treat it like a brand new implementation of a new EHR, and consider your legacy EHR as a legacy system. Now, there are certainly some shortcuts. There are some added components and data components that we will get to convert because it is Epic to Epic, but it actually doesn't necessarily make it any easier to implement the new thing. So the expectations setting from our academic center is to help them understand the challenge, help them understand and see the implementation as a new implementation, and not to be too held on to the old implementation. including the legacy data. From our community network hospitals, which is what our name for our partners that were acquired, coming from Cerner and Athena Health, it's actually a little bit more straightforward. The expectation setting, only because the situation is a bit clearer. It's certainly, this is the legacy system, this is the new target system, and here's what we can and can't move, and where things are going to land. And I would also add that there's a lot of, it's interesting as we're moving through our governance process and our decision making process on workflows and content for community health systems. I think they're actually much more able to adopt the Epic Foundation system. I think it's a little bit more geared for that type of setting. They do have a lot of workflows and things that are built out in their foundation system for academic medical centers. There's obviously many academic medical centers that use Epic, so there's a lot of content in there as well. But I think we find that will be the side that of our organization that will probably deviate the most from the Epic Foundation system. As little as they plan to deviate, that will probably be the side that deviates more.
So you kind of walked into a big opportunity with it's a new position, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you didn't take over for anyone though, did you? I
Yeah,
think
that's true. My role is a net new role. We're building out kind of our ITS leadership level. So mine is a net new role. There's been a couple other net new leadership roles. The organization is doing this. It's not just in our IT division. We have several new leaders that we've brought in the last several months since the acquisition, as well as integrating the leadership from our community network hospitals. So it's certainly a time of growth, both in terms of just sheer volume and size, but also in terms of growing our teams. I suppose the cliche would be that what's your number one opportunity? Growth. What's your number one challenge? Growth. And that's certainly true for us right now. But it's generating a lot of opportunity, and that makes it a really exciting time, I think, to be here. One of the big drivers that for why I came at this time, I would much rather be here through the challenging implementation work that we're taking on, and this is really the baptism by fire. Me in a brand new role, I get to meet everybody kind of all at once through the course of the project, and that's really exciting. So that's what I'm in this new role. That's a big thing that I'm working on right now, is just establishing relationships and working on those relationships within my organization, both within our information technology services division, as well as obviously across the entire operations.
One of the things you mentioned, which I thought was very interesting when we were preparing for this talk, was your intention to design a service oriented IT shop. You wanted to be service oriented, and I'm curious, what does that mean, and how do you do it?
Yeah, having been one of those Epic kids that grows up at Epic, that certainly beats a methodology and one way to look at the world kind of into you. And for the big implementations like we're doing now at UCI, that methodology and that implementation structure works, and it works well. You kind of organize by application in the application division, and you set up your project management structure and your governance structure that kind of follows suit. I think it's really after the big implementation work, when you get into long-term system management and kind of the forever optimization phase, that you can then start to get more creative. And that's one thing that I'm looking forward to. Our system right now is working, but what I want to look at in the future for our organization is how do you bring in more agile models? How do you truly support a business service line fully, and not just by one application but actually support it from front end to back end. Some organizations are looking at they've diversified their IT structures into more of a maintenance team and a deployment team. So there's a lot of groups out there that are experimenting and have evolved their structures to be able to meet the business a little bit closer to where the business is at. And in some cases, it's really interesting. I think one of the things that I'm seeing and that I'm certainly interested in is I see some folks starting to turn the corner from the old mindset of absolutely no shadow IT allowed. We will centralize or die in our IT division, into some more open-minded approaches. My response when I hear things like shadow IT is not to cringe and say, "Oh no, that's immediately a bad thing." My response is always, "Well, is it working?" I'm not necessarily convinced that centralization, just for the sake of centralization, is always the right move. It might be in some cases, but if you could get service line level support directly to your high criticality areas, where they get their questions answered, their maintenance done, their project shepherded and live successfully. I mean, that's the ultimate end goal. Make it seem like they are part of the business. And to me, you can kind of get there either way, centralized or decentralized, or in factions. I like to say any plan will work if you do. If you're willing to put in the work, and work on that plan, you'll then come to a point where you see if your plan is working or not. And the biggest thing I think we have to be open to is when we see it not working well, is how do we pivot? Are there ways we should be structuring differently? Are there ways we should be delivering differently to really meet our business partners, and become true business partners, and not just a reactive kind of IT shop? And that's a hard thing. It's very easy to fall into that reactionary world, because IT usually is, right. We get a ticket, and that tells us what we then need to go do. Are there ways that we can evolve our structures so that we don't have to talk about service level agreements and targets and why this ticket didn't meet it, and really get to a point where we are constantly talking about value driven or value optimization for the business. And so that's what I'm interested in. I can't tell you that I've got a silver bullet, or that anybody does, but I think there's some interesting models out there to look at.
Yeah, well, it sounds like you're. If I were to summarize in one word, it's flexibility.
Yeah,
That one size doesn't necessarily fit all yet. We should still strive for that kind of standardization, but understanding that customization, configuration still play an important role. You just have to decide, when do you want to push that button?
yeah,
And sometimes it's very important. You don't want to push it all the time. Otherwise, you run into the problem that your colleagues kind of have mentioned, which is we configured and customized, and now we can't take advantage of a bunch of stuff because we'd have to back it out and
right.
move in a different direction.
You'd have to have very strong guiding principles. You still have to have very strong change management in place, very strong training and informatics in place to keep you from going down the path that you don't want to go down. But it's still, I think, a worthy thought process to then turn into something real, and try to improve our business. How many times has in IT do we hear, that we didn't know anything about XYZ project, and now it's landed in our lap, and we have to react, and we've got to figure out how to get the staff. And we've seen ebbs and flows with this of even at the CIO level, of some CIOs not being at the executive table anymore, and they're no longer reporting to the CEOs, and in some cases that may be the right decision for a particular organization. It kind of proves the point to me that from an IT standpoint, it is kind of a what have you done for me lately business, and we have to continuously prove our value to the organization. Otherwise, that cost center is going to just look like a very large cost center on a large sheet of paper, and we have to bring that value. We have to communicate that value. We have to manage the change of that value, and that's where I would say the flexibility models come in. How can you get closer to the business and help drive the value in the business? Because I don't know if if there's really projects that we get in our world where we go, yeah, we really don't want to do that. Oftentimes they come in and we go, man, we love to do that. We would love to support the business doing that. And what are we up against? Always it's time limitations, resource limitations, and cost limitations. So if we can get creative and with our structures and our models, is there a future? This is maybe my dream, my future dream of healthcare IT is there a future where we no longer have to talk about SLAs and we only talk about value, and we are at the table for all the big decisions and the little ones, not because we are duplicative, but because we add value by being there at the table.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a great dream. And I know it's kind of, I feel like it's something that you'll be working towards, but never necessarily achieving. People are going to want to know that you'll fix a problem in X number of hours or days, but
And we'll evolve and yeah, there's, like I said, no silver bullet and no silver bullet timeline either to that. It's evolving to the needs of your business, and are there structures you can adopt and move towards that give you greater flexibility? It's a really hard thing to do when you have those three primary limitations always.
well, speaking of dreams and the future, let's pivot a little bit and talk about the future of IT, specifically in healthcare. Are there any? Obviously, you're head down in a big implementation and kind of building out and creating of a larger IT department. But are there any trends that you see coming that you think that you're trying to plan for now, even though you may not be able to fully execute it?
Well, for us right now, yes, we have a big implementation in front of us. I'm also one to say let's never waste a good crisis or a good project. So if we have the opportunity to add, these are the times when you actually do have some ability to request the timelines and the resources and the funding. And so if there are items that scope items that we can bring into our project that are going to help us advance immediately upon go live, we're in that phase of our project right now, deciding a lot of those things. There are several for us that we have chosen to move to. Epic continues to develop, and they've got new modules, and so there are several new modules that we are implementing with this implementation that we are not live with in our legacy platform. And some of those are whole modules, and some of those are more functionality driven functionalities that we would like to be using today that we are not for whatever historical reason. And so we're trying actively to jump ourselves forward and not look at this big implementation. I mean, I having done a number of Epic implementations in my career, would not have thought that in the year 2024, 2025, I'd be doing yet another brand new Epic implementation. But here we are, and several others are also. We're not alone in this. It used to be the thought was all the big implementations would stop someday, and we'd all just be optimizing, and that's certainly not true yet. But because we have that opportunity, and like I mentioned, talking to my peers at other organizations, what would you do differently if you had the chance? And a lot of it is, yeah, we'd stick to that foundation system and we would bring in all the things we want to bring in. Everybody's been asking for, but now once you're live and into maintenance mode, got to follow all those processes and to get things approved and life cycles of implementations. We decided instead on a third party, and that's got a 3-year contract, so we won't even revisit the decision for 2.5 years, and so right now for us, our designing is happening now, and we're trying to make it so that we aren't taking steps backwards because we have to take the time to do this big implementation, but bring the things into the implementation and build it all together that are going to catapult us forward once we're live. And so we're looking, also with our growth to a much larger health system with more facilities. We're looking at, clinical command center type of things and patient throughput optimization opportunities. We're looking at how we're going to manage patient transfers and all of that. Those are going to be really transformational for our organization. And then at the same time, we're at that stage that many were at many moons ago when they first got live on their new EHR platforms and said, "Wow, isn't this great to have all our data in the same place?" That's one where we've kind of through our acquisitions, we no longer have all of our data in one place, and that will be such a nice moment when we're all on the same platforms and have all of our data in one place and can now design further our evolution at UC Irvine because we now have that shared capacity.
So that was the wrong answer. You were supposed to say big data, big
And
data.
AI, right?
So I'll see if we can edit that and fix your answer.
That's right. Let me edit now. Big data and AI, of course.
Thank you. See,
Yes.
that's all. That's all you had to say.
Yeah.
Is big data and AI, and that's what that's the answer. Well, we're nearing the end of our time, and I wanted to give you the opportunity to do something that we have never had a guest do, and I think you're just the right person to do it. I understand that you are big into dad humor, and that you might have one or two dad jokes to bring up the mood because you started off in a negative way.
Oh,
Let's be
okay.
honest, right? You started off in a negative way by accurately describing the state of healthcare in the United States. And so, is there a dad joke or two that you'd like to tell us?
Well, I will fully own the dad title. Those for those that don't know me personally will get big eyes at this, but my wife and I have 8 kids together. Our oldest is 16. Our youngest is almost 1 year. So we have a pretty good spread. I at one point saw I don't remember if it was in a magazine or where it was, but a picture of an elderly couple who had 7 or 8 kids, and it was them and all of their kids with their spouses, and then the sub caption on the picture said, "Not pictured are their 43 grandchildren and their 86 and counting great grandchildren." I felt like I both died from a heart attack and jumped out of my seat, excited for that future that my wife and I are building for ourselves. I know all of my kids' names. They're great names. Don't ask me, but they're great. I don't know if I've got another dad joke off the top of the head there.
That's fine. That's fine. I'm listen, I'm excited that you know your children's names. I have four and I do not know all of them at all the time. And I regularly put the dog in for one of the children. So you're way ahead of me.
I like to joke with our leadership team here that why did we stop at 7 hospitals? Couldn't we just go one more, and then I could have each one for each of my kids, and then I was on a call a couple of weeks ago with one of our physician leaders, and we were talking about some future service lines, and he brought up hospital at home. And he said, "Yeah, hospital at home becomes our 8th hospital in our system." And there it was.
There
So
you go.
there I got to fulfill a dream, I suppose.
Listen, I'm gonna. This is a service oriented podcast, and as such, I'm going to provide a service for you, and maybe for some of our listeners, and I'm going to give you a healthcare adjacent dad joke for you to use. Maybe when it's getting a little stressful when you're trying to follow those governance rules, and you can use this. It's a knock knock joke, which instantly makes it a dad joke, in my opinion. Knock knock.
Who's there?
HIPAA.
HIPAA who?
I can't tell you. All right. Now there's no charge for that, Doug. Like that's free. That's free. Well, it's healthcare adjacent. The kids, come on. I'll give you another one. That's not a knock knock joke, but a light bulb changing joke. So there's many with how many physicians it takes to change some along those lines. But I like to get even more specific. So how many psychiatrists does it take to change a light bulb?
Oh, how many?
Only one, but the light bulb has to really want to change. All right.
Like that one a lot.
I have a lot of these, and as the podcast maybe progresses, we can make this a thing if people are listening all this way in.
I think this has certainly been an area of it's hard in the modern day to manage professional life and personal life and family life and has certainly been it's all I've ever known, really. I got married and had kids in college during my undergrad time, and so it's all I've ever known, and I love it. But it is certainly a challenge for all of us that are trying to make it and still put in the hours at home. And many nights I get home and I just get my itinerary for which kids I have to drive where and who I have to pick up and when, and really all service and credit goes to my wife for keeping our household afloat. When I talk about my family and my wife, I will often get the response that your wife must be a saint. And I say, oh, she absolutely is. Let me tell you a story. Every time that somebody tells me that about my wife, and they've never met her, and pay her great compliments just upon hearing of our situation, and so I will often text her or call her just to say, "Hey, somebody out there really appreciates you, and here's what they said." So this happened one time, and I got that same compliment. Your wife must be a saint, and I said, "Oh, she is. I'll let her know you think so." So I called my wife after, and she picked up the phone and responded, "Hello." And I said, "Why are we whispering?" And she said, "I'm hiding in the closet eating chocolate." I said, "Yep, that sounds about right. If I were home with that rowdy bunch, I think I would be hiding in the closet eating chocolate a lot."
Yeah, that's where my podcast studio would be, actually. And I would have convinced them that it's all for the sound, but in fact, it's for the chocolate consumption.
Yeah. I will add maybe one other, maybe a principle or a lesson that I've learned and tried to implement in my life that it only comes to mind because I'm trying to teach my kids of this. It's been something that I've learned early on, actually when I was doing missionary work, and I had the opportunity to implement it really for the first time when I was at Epic, and I've tried to continue using this. And it's a principle I call returning and reporting. And it's not rocket science. It's simply another name for self accountability. But the idea that I came into my professional life with was I really wanted to grow my career. Of course, I had ambition and I had a family at home, so I need to feed them, and that drives a lot of the ambition that I have. And so I took on this principle, and the idea is that I never want someone else to ask me, "How's that thing going?" So I own a lot of, I have a lot of responsibilities in my professional career, and have big projects and these things. And my goal is that operational leaders, my boss, that they won't have to ask me, how is XYZ project going, or how is that thing going. And the reason I don't want them to ask me that is because I want to be proactively returning and reporting to the right stakeholders and giving sufficient report outs that they don't have to wonder how it's going. And so I had the opportunity when I was first at Epic to really implement this. And I even told my first boss there, when we meet for our one-on-ones, I don't want you to ask me how it's going. I want you to just give me the first 5 to 10 minutes and let me report on all the tasks that I've been given and all the things I'm working on. And then I want to start asking you questions of what you think the next steps would be. So this is where the principle gets pretty cool in my head. It's not just that that someone reports and yay, we were accountable. It's I can actually use this to learn how my boss thinks. And you can do this in personal life, in you can do it in a religious context. You can do it in all aspects. And so I started reporting to my boss. I didn't tell her this principle. I just told her I want to report proactively. And in my first performance evaluation there, it was one of those, I call them tiny fist pump moments in life. You don't get very many like huge fist pumps and double fist pump moments, but you get a handful of tiny fist pump moments throughout life when things just went right. And in that first performance evaluation was written, it's great. I never have to ask you how you're doing, how the things are going, because you always proactively return and report. Now that was a great time period. I was doing it very, very well. I wish I continued to do it as well, and it takes time and mental energy. But it's now a principle I'm teaching to my kids, and trying to help them in their schoolwork, and with all the things they have going on. It's a principle that then you can turn into you can start growing your visioning and your strategic mind, to say, okay, now I've reported. What does my boss think is the next step for me? Okay, great. Let me go do that next step, and then I'll return and report yet again. But maybe the next time I return a report, I'll go, and I think the next step would be this, or option one or option two. What do you think? And I can start I can start seeing how that person thinks, whether it's a boss or a stakeholder, a leader, and eventually you could get to the point where, like I'm at now, I've received a big responsibility to oversee this very large implementation. And now I'm starting to learn my stakeholders to say, okay, what do they need to know in my report outs? And am I reporting sufficiently when they ask questions and say, no, I think we would go this way. I go, oh, okay, there's something for me to learn. They thought differently on that one, and why. But over time, and this is ultimately what happened in my early career and helped me start catapulting my own professional growth. When my boss was up for promotion and was asked, who should take over your role? The very clear answer was, oh, Doug, because he thinks just like me.
Yeah.
Right. And that has continued. Again, I share it only because I like to talk about it. I've taught this principle to many of my teams over time. In fact, I was at a conference a couple of months ago, and I had a former team member come up to me and say, you know what, I just taught my whole team, and she's progressed in her career now and has a good sized team. So I just taught them all returning and reporting. And it was one of those tiny fist pump moments. So something to aspire to for me. Like I said, I wish I did it even better than I do. I even just try to use the language. I'll type into my emails at the top of the email, returning and reporting, and then lay out whatever it was, almost just so that in my own mental counter I can take credit for doing it.
Doug, we have run out of time. This has been a great talk. As you may know, we always like to ask the same question at the end of all of our podcasts, which is there something in your life that is so well designed that it brings you joy and happiness whenever you use it or interact with it? And
Yes.
what there is, what is that?
Yes. I have two that come to mind, and
Excellent.
they're both things that in recent years have become a new thing for me. So several, it's been maybe 7 or 8 years ago now. My wife bought me for her a Father's Day gift of a Blackstone griddle grill.
Okay.
It's a flat top grill. It's like a hibachi style restaurant type of grill. It's the biggest size they make, which with a family of 10, that's what we need. And I did not do much cooking before this. I did the typical, Saturday morning, Sunday morning dad breakfast of burnt pancakes and bacon. But I have found that I love to cook, and almost more than love to cook, I love to serve the food. I love to make a big meal and serve it and watch people eat it. There's something in the service of it, and the Blackstone griddle has opened that side of my life to me. And the design is pretty straightforward. It's just a flat top grill with a propane tank. Not much to it. There's several other brands and flavors out there. I love anytime I get to cook on it. Because you can do all the things. You can do the meats, but you can also do things like fried rice and all the things that would fall through the grate on a regular grill. I mentioned mostly because of the life change that it brought into my life. The other one is a more recent one, but also dealing with food consumption. You've seen the Santa Claus movie, Tim Allen?
I believe it's a federal law that everyone has seen
think so,
that. Yeah.
right? We watch it every Christmas with the kids, and they get a kick out of it. And there is a scene where the elf makes a hot chocolate for Tim Allen's Santa Claus character. And those that know will probably even be able to quote the scene of extra chocolate, not too hot, shaken, not stirred. I have been trying to figure out how to make the perfect cup of hot chocolate for a long time. Last winter, I was in the kitchen and I'm over the pan and I'm whisking and I'm stirring, and I shared with a coworker my dilemma in having never accomplished my goal. And she shared with me that she had an amazing new product, and it's by a company called Hotel Chocolat. I think is chocolate or chocolat for the fancy. And they created what they have called a velvetizer.
Oh.
I would go as far as to say they are the kings of they're on the forefront of velvetization.
Yeah.
It's essentially, it looks like an electric kettle. It's actually not overly complicated, but it is a joy to use. And when my previous organization, when this coworker told me about this, it was right around the time we had just had our last kid, and my previous organization sent me one as a gift, and I immediately got it out. And you can buy their chocolate or you can get your own. I have way too many kids to buy expensive chocolate, so we go to the store and get extra dark chocolate. And in fact, two of my kids and I, as soon as we got it, we went to the store and we bought all the different kinds of milk and creams and different flavors of chocolate bars and milk chocolate and dark chocolate. And we went kind of mad scientists on this. And we have found in the last year of using it for us, what is the perfect ratio of cream, the perfect kind of milk, and the right amount of chocolate and blend of dark chocolate to make it just right for every individual in the family. And it is, I just love it. It froths it for you, it thickens it, it heats it up. It takes about 2.5 to 3 minutes to make a cup. I always go over the max line because I need to make a lot more at once and do it 5 times to feed the whole family.
Yeah.
But I've gotten this thing out to, the way to a woman's heart is through dark chocolate. And so when my wife has her friends over, I'll throw the apron on and get the velvetizer out and whip them all up the best cup of they don't even call it hot chocolate, they call it drinking chocolate because they want to be fancy.
Oh wow.
And serve that up, and I don't have to say anything. I don't have to engage in conversation. I can just hand that over, and I win hearts and minds.
I feel like we should get you in front of the United Nations, because I feel like
it could bring peace,
world peace
to the world.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing, and that certainly qualifies as a well-designed machine. The velvetizer, and also you use the word velvetization, I think, which is one of the best words I've ever heard. I don't know what it means, but
it just makes you feel good.
It does. Like,
right?
Yeah. Like, we need to max out the velvetization today,
right?
On this call, or something. Yeah, I'm gonna start using it. And people ask what it means, I'll just kind of put back on them. Well, what do you think it means? And then that will be the right answer.
I wish I had a podcast voice that was very velvety. Right? Some people are just blessed that way.
No, you and I talk like normal people, and that's unfortunate. Doug, thank you so much for enlightening us and making us smarter, and also I think starting us on the path to world peace and harmony, with all through hot chocolate or drinking chocolate.
Drinking chocolate.
Yeah, I appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing all the success that you have at UC Irvine Health, and I'm so glad that you got that 8th hospital, that virtual hospital, that hospital at home, to completes
the set.
Yeah. And so now you just have to figure out what hospital goes with what child. And then you're there.
Yep.
Whoa.
We are so close.
We'll have to do a follow-up once that happens and get back. So anyway, once again, thank you for your time and really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. For more on Doug, follow him on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/Doug-Turner. Check back for more episodes of Designing for Health wherever you listen to podcasts or on NordicGlobal.com. Till next time, we'll see you in network. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a 5-star rating and a review. This helps others find the podcast as well.